This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
It's our final Saturday of this season and we go qualifying in a couple of hours' time. But before that, it is the final practice session of 2022. As cars will go around this spectacular Yas Island circuit in Abu Dhabi. The sun baking hot today, a little ripple of the flag above the grandstand saying that it's a crosswind at the moment. And Max Verstappen, fastest yesterday, will look to add another win, another pole position to his tally this year. Jack Nicholls, he has been in fine form this season and there is nothing to suggest anything will change this weekend.
No, not much backing off, is there, in these closing stages of the season? Yeah, okay, 6th place in Sao Paulo last time out, but nevertheless, and maybe didn't really have the pace, but certainly the pace looked back yesterday. Missed out on free practice 1 because Liam Lawson was in his car, but then free practice 2, 3/10 quicker than the rest of the field. And his closest challenge is a potentially Mercedes coming into this one, because Ferrari looked like they had a difficult day yesterday.
They really did. A shocker, really. They were lacking pace. They said they were struggling with tyre degradation again. Sam Bird, Formula E driver for the Jaguar Racing Team. Good afternoon, good morning to you. Thoughts on Ferrari yesterday, who were kind of missing in action?
Their charge has sort of petered out, hasn't it, Jenny? They, at the beginning of the year, we were all talking about this great fight between Red Bull and Ferrari, and, it was going to go down to the wire. They were going to go toe-to-toe, but very early on in the season, mistakes started to incur inside the team, and it's just got worse and worse through the year. I think that their upgrades have not worked, whereas Mercedes and Red Bull have continued pushing and found more pace in their car. Ferrari haven't, and it's a bit of a shame, really. They've got to the end of the year, and it's now looking like they might lose second in the championship in the teams.
Yeah, it's very tight in terms of championship for certain positions in both the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. Let me give you a reminder. In the Constructors, 719 points is what Red Bull currently have. Then beneath them, 524 for Ferrari and Mercedes on 505. So a difference of just 19 points. And interestingly for me, 19 points separate Alpine and McLaren as well. But for me, Mercedes have every opportunity to sort of close that gap and maybe overtake Ferrari because of their forms. I don't say the same for McLaren. I don't see any way that they can get past Alpine this weekend, yet the points difference exactly the same.
Well, Mercedes are dealing in bigger points, aren't they? When you're up at the sharp end, you're getting 25 for a win, whereas McLaren, even if they have a really good race, maybe they can finish 7th, and pick up 6 points. So I think that's the difference, is you're dealing with bigger numbers when you're talking about Mercedes and Ferrari up at the front. I think Mercedes would still need Ferrari to have a real bad day. I haven't done the exact maths, but if they got sort of 2nd and 3rd and both Ferraris retired, then maybe they've got a shot, but I think it's going to be quite extreme for Mercedes to nick it away from Ferrari at the end of this season. And we're at a track where you don't get too much randomness, let's say, so
no rain forecast.
No, exactly. So I think it's pretty unlikely Mercedes will do it, but obviously they'll be doing their best to do so.
Session getting started in about a minute and a half, I think. I haven't got an accurate clock in front of me, to be totally honest with you. Andrew Benson, the BBC's chief F1 writer. The team principals' press conferences have been happening today. We've been scurrying around. Mattia Binotto, let's just keep on the Ferrari track for a moment. He has been speaking to the world's media, including yourself.
Are they wanting him to come in if it's cool?
Yes, morning everybody. He was obviously asked about these reports in the Italian media that he's going to lose his position. He didn't deny it outright. He just said that he needs to focus on events on track and having the best end of the season that they can. It is looking increasingly like that is going to happen. There've been too many mistakes this year at Ferrari. And John Elkann, the chairman, has decided that something needs to be done. That is the impression. It's not confirmed by any stretch of the imagination. And if it happens, we don't know when it's going to be announced, but it does look like there may well be a change at the top of Ferrari.
Is this the best shape Ferrari have been in for years, Andrew? And then you get rid of the team principal?
So in 2017 and 2018, they spent much of those seasons with the most competitive car or a very competitive car. Sebastian Vettel was leading both of those championships for certainly the first half of those seasons before Mercedes took them over. They've had 2 very bad years. Obviously, that was a consequence of the engine controversy in 2019 when they were found to have, well, when the FIA said that they didn't believe the Ferrari engine was being run legally at all times, which Ferrari deny. But they certainly started 2020 with a less powerful engine than they had in 2019. They've been recovering since then. They started this year in their most competitive shape, I think, certainly since 2018, possibly even better than then. But the fall has been precipitous, and the mistakes, more importantly, have kept coming. I think that's the key thing. It's one thing to have a no-blame culture, which is what Matteo Binotto has tried to instill. But within that no-blame culture, you've got to take action to stop the errors happening, even if you don't want to take action in the way that Ferrari traditionally done by sacking people. But we've been seeing consistent mistakes, and even though Charles Leclerc went into the Brazil weekend saying, we think we've seen progress in the last few races in terms of race operations, they then go and send him out on intermediate tyres on a dry track, so there is no evidence that things are improving, and I think that's the issue at Ferrari at the moment.
Well, when I spoke to Matteo Binotto, I asked him about the pressure of being a team principal, and specifically a team principal for Ferrari. And he was very honest. He said it's one of the toughest jobs in the world, because you're there, the whole of Italy, the whole of the F1 world is invested in you. They all want to have a say, and that's it's a tough gig, isn't it? There's a certain amount of responsibility, but also pressure that comes with that. And he said, I think he quoted Sebastian Vettel actually, and said that everybody pretty much is a fan of Ferrari, even if they don't admit that they are a fan of Ferrari. There's a lot of vested interest in that team.
Well, the cars are on track. Well, Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel are on circuit. For those of you syncing up, we've got 57 minutes and 40, 39, 38 seconds on the clock. I just feel like, I don't know, it's just changing the manager doesn't feel like the solution at Ferrari at the moment. And I don't know, I don't know enough about the structure of the team in order to, decide that. But the strategy, Andrew, the strategy has been a problem, let's say, and these mistakes have been a problem through at least 3 Ferrari team principals now, right?
They've been a problem since 2010.
Exactly, and how many have they been through since then that they just keep sacking?
Well, yes, but I think for me this is the key question, and I don't know the answer to the question I'm about to raise, but this is it, okay? So the team principal does not do the strategy. The team principal does not design the car. But the team principal's job is to ensure that the right people are in place to do the strategy right. And if they aren't, and if the strategy is going wrong, it's his responsibility to change things around so that they are. Now, he hasn't done that yet. Why is that? Is it because he hasn't quite got around to it? Is it because he doesn't know what to do? Is it because he believes the people in place can do it and he just wants to give them a chance to improve, in which case they're getting a lot of chances? Is it that he doesn't know what to do? Only John Elkann, the Ferrari chairman, knows the answers to those questions, because he'll be talking to Matteo Binotto. All we can say from the outside is that if it's his job to make the strategy work properly, that aspect of his job he's not doing properly.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, to me, we've been, since that, it was Stefano Domenicali running the team in 2012 when you were talking about, 2010 when you were talking about Andrew. Since then, you've been through Domenicali, Marco Mattiacci, 3 years of Maurizio Arrivabene. Binotto only took over in 2019, and the problems are the same. I think that's the thing I don't understand, is that I get what you're saying, that, it's his responsibility, but I don't know if the culture almost exists for him to be able to make those changes or something. I don't know. And so we think when you've been through so many team principals and the fundamental problems remain the same, maybe it's not the team principal's fault. I don't know.
It seems that there's a systemic issue at Ferrari. That I would agree with that point. If we think back to the Schumacher era with Ross Brawn, Rory Byrne, Jean Todt, they were the gold standard in Formula One on every level when it came to car design, when it came to strategy, whatever it came to. Since then, they've fallen off that high level.
And before then, also, Andrew, that was very much an anomaly in Ferrari's history, correct?
Yes. 100%, and the previous era that was an anomaly was the mid to late 70s, when first of all Luca Di Montezemolo was in charge, and then he stepped aside. But the strength of the team carried on through the Lauda era and into the Scheckter Villeneuve, the start of the Scheckter Villeneuve era in 79, and then again they fell off. So the question is, why does this keep happening? Why do Ferrari keep having these problems? And I think people within Formula One, I mean, you've got to be very careful what you say about these things, because I remember Stefano Domenicali, when he was team principal, Niki Lauda had made some some remark about the return of the spaghetti culture at Ferrari. Now, you can see that as a racist comment, okay? And Domenicali reacted quite negatively to it. He said, I refuse to accept that we can't design a quick car or can't run a proper racing team because of our nationality. But the facts are the facts. Since they exited the Brawn-Todd era, they have ended up in this situation and they haven't been able to do anything about it. So people within Formula One do ask that question. Does it need an outsider to come into Ferrari to try to change that culture? And I guess if Fred Vasseur, who's French, not as Todd was, not English as Brawn was, not South African as Rory Byrne was, but he's not an Italian, and therefore he's not invested in the whole Ferrari culture perhaps quite as much as people who've grown up within it, like Mattia Binotto. Maybe he can do something about it. Maybe that's what John Elkann, the chairman's, thinking about if he's going to make this change.
Just on that, I've spoken to a few people involved with the team, and they've always suggested to me that anybody who isn't Italian will never have the respect of the garage. Now, Binotto is Italian, and I think it's respected and liked, certainly. I just still don't know where are the failings? Are they just ignoring management? Do you know what I mean? I don't understand where the failings come from, because it seems like they should have everything there to succeed.
Sam Bird.
Jenny, yeah, obviously I've been with the Ferrari family for a number of years as a factory driver in their Le Mans team and in the WEC. And the one thing that I would say is that there is this perception that everybody there is very much Ferrari through and through. And there's this, it's not an arrogance, but there is this, well, we're Ferrari, we've got all of this history. And if you carry that in racing, I think it's not a good thing. You need to be pushing forwards regardless of your history to recreate, to try and create a better future for yourselves. And looking into the past and having this amazing past, I actually think hurts Ferrari in the fact that they've got this massive shadow over them that follows them everywhere they go, that they are this mega brand and they're expected to do well all the time. I don't think that helps them as a company in Formula One.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And that, just what you were saying there, made me think, when Mercedes entered Formula One, they could kind of do it with a clean slate almost, and with they were very successful in the 50s, and in sports car racing in the early 90s, but broadly speaking, in F1, they had no kind of legacy to live up to and know, this is how it's always been done, or this is how we operate. They could start from a kind of clean slate, I suppose, when they came into F1. A few cars out on track. One of them is the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who's just coming around turns 15 and 16. Final two corners on the circuit. Hashtag BBC F1, let us know your thoughts, or F1 at bbc.co.uk. Leclerc goes quickest, half a second quicker than Carlos Sainz. They're both on the medium tyres at the moment.
The other thing, Jack, is replacing the guy at the top. So if they replace Binotto, I think in order to get rid of these mistakes, they've got to have more of a fundamental clear out of a lot of people that make decisions within the company. A little bit like football managers. You don't just... Leclerc radio?
I heard a big moment I had quite a lot of bottoming into turn 2, which made me lose the rear. Strange.
Understood.
It's a bit of a wobble for Leclerc between turns 2 and 3. We saw a couple of those little snaps yesterday, actually.
Yeah, we saw Mick Schumacher have one, but I think that was because his floor was a little bit too low. He was a bit too close to the ground. You know, when football managers leave, the incoming manager will normally bring his own people with his own philosophies into the club to try and change a club. And you don't see that too often within Formula One. Normally it's just the boss changes and then he works with the people that he's got. I think Ferrari need to do more in order to have a real change. One of the things I would say as well, especially on Leclerc's side of the garage, is it seems like Charles is making or calling the shots quite a lot with regards to the strategy. Now, you don't see that so much with Max and with Lewis and other top drivers. It's almost as if they're panicking a little bit because they're giving a lot of power to Charles to call the strategies. Is it plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D? All the time on the radio talking about different plans. It screams of a team that's a little bit panicked at the moment on what to do and not sticking to the right plan.
Just going to watch the Mercedes come across the line. George Russell has just done a 1 minute 26.5. He's on the soft tyres and gone 4 tenths quicker than Carlos Sainz. Hamilton goes 4 tenths quicker than Russell on a 1 minute 26.0. So Hamilton quickest, half a second to Russell, 9 tenths to Sainz, 1.2 seconds to Leclerc, but the Ferraris are on the medium tyres. Andrew, a final thought on the Ferrari?
Yeah, so I think the big concern for them, if they don't sort the team out, is they're going to lose Charles Leclerc. You know, he might even be the fastest driver in Formula One. He's certainly one of the very best drivers in Formula One, and he has seen what he hoped would be his first title championship campaign this year fall apart around his ears, largely because of mistakes by the team, strategy errors, engine failures. Obviously, he's made one big mistake himself in France as well. But it was fundamentally the team's problem. And he's looked a little careworn in the last few races. Maybe he's just tired at the end of a long season, but it's obviously going to be difficult for him to have gone into the season on such a high and then seen it fall apart so quickly, especially the speed with which it turned around. They even hit Ricciardo's radio.
They received 15k tailwind into turn 6, even with no following.
Okay.
Do carry on, Andrew.
Ferrari have picked Charles Leclerc as the guy to build their team around, and I think they can already sense Mercedes sniffing around him. Lewis Hamilton's 37. He wants to do another contract, but likelihood is he's only going to do one more contract. The ends of those 2 contracts with Leclerc and Hamilton, because Leclerc runs to the end of 24, they might not quite coincide, so it's not going to be the easiest of things for Toto Wolff to arrange. But Ferrari already fear that Mercedes have their eyes on a Russell Leclerc driver lineup in the next few years, and I think they realise that if they don't do something, Leclerc will go for that, and they feel they need to stop that happening.
Interesting. 46 minutes and 37 seconds on the clock. Very interesting indeed. Charles Leclerc has just improved on his medium tyres to go up to 3rd quickest, so a 10th quicker than Carlos Sainz. Sainz has returned to the pit lane now after they've both done 5 laps on those medium tyres. Ricciardo 5th quickest, Magnussen and Schumacher 6th and 7th quickest. There was a bit of smoke or something coming from Ricciardo's left front at one point after he got onto the brakes. I thought initially it was a tyre lock-up, but maybe it was a bit of a hot brake on that front left or something. Jenny?
Yeah, I'm down at Ricciardo's garage, actually. 2 things of interest for you. The first one is that they've filed down the cement on the pit lane. Where he was coming into his pit box yesterday, he complained of skidding, and there was a section that had obviously been painted and had an extra film layer over it. Well, now that's gone. They've put down the pit box and the grid work that they have out there. So when I put my foot over it, yeah, you can see it's very different texture to the one yesterday, and it should stop him slipping, and the team finding that a little bit easier, which is good news. The other thing about Ricciardo is I've been speaking to a couple of people this morning. Now, Dr. Helmut Marko apparently went a little bit trigger happy with the news that Daniel would be joining Red Bull as the reserve driver, or as their 3rd driver. And actually, when you delve down into the details a little bit more, nothing's been signed contractually, although talks have been ongoing for some time. And the role, I understand, would be slightly different from a traditional third/reserve driver role. It would be much more of a promotional position. And I found that very interesting, the wording that's being used and the way they're talking about it. I wonder if this is just a little way of trying to maybe appease or make it slightly easier for Sergio Perez if that news does come out in the next few days, that it's not... He wouldn't be there to kind of deputise for Perez or to come in as a third driver in a traditional sense. And I found it fascinating, I have to say.
Yeah, it feels like it could be more like a brand ambassador sort of role, Andrew.
Well, I think Helmut Marko rather dropped Red Bull in it yesterday when he went on Sky Germany and said that Ricciardo was going to take that role, because he is going to take that role. It isn't signed yet, but that's what's going to happen unless Ricciardo has a last-minute change of mind. The problem for Red Bull this weekend especially, is I'm sure everybody's noticed there's been a bit of a team orders controversy at Red Bull. Max Verstappen's not very happy with Sergio Perez, who he thinks crashed deliberately in Monaco qualifying. And so when Marko said that, they had absolute kittens down at Red Bull, because it was like, oh my God, Perez is going to think we're bringing in Ricciardo to sort of keep his feet to the fire, or even as a potential replacement before the end of his contract. Remember, Perez has a contract for the next 2 years. Now, that explains the public messaging. It is true that Ricciardo will do a lot of promotional work, but he's also going to be a simulator driver, and Ricciardo himself also sees it as a potential way back into Formula One. And it is true that having Ricciardo there does keep the pressure on Perez. It's just that Red Bull don't want it to look like that right now, but that's the reality. Ricciardo is going to be the third driver, and if Perez doesn't do what they want, Ricciardo will always be there. They could always bring him in. It's just they don't want that to be the public perception right now.
So you're saying that Red Bull are bringing Ricciardo in as a third driver to put the pressure on Perez a little bit and make sure he, keeps his game up, but they don't in any way want anyone to think that.
I'm not sure that that's the explicit thinking behind the decision when the talk started happening, but it is a reality that will be the case, just by virtue of an 8-time Grand Prix winner being in the team. Perez knows that there's a ready-made replacement for him if he steps out of line. It's a little bit of extra pressure on him, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Hamilton's quickest. Leclerc has just improved to go second quickest, only 500 slower than Hamilton. Alonso a quarter of a second back in third on the medium tyres, 100th quicker than Ocon. Sainz is in fifth. Russell is sixth. Vettel seventh. Eighth for Ricciardo. Ninth for Magnussen. 10th for Schumacher. Sam, good move for Ricciardo.
I think it's the only move for Ricciardo. That's all he could do, and he's going back somewhere that he was loved, which is good for him. I think that he needs to feel that. As we see a replay of Lando Norris.
I got fire on the front left brake.
Okay, we see that here.
So Norris having exactly what happened to Ricciardo a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, maybe it's something to do with blanking on the brakes. Both McLarens seem to be running very, very hot on the front axles. Going back to Daniel, I think it's a good move. It means that he's still there or thereabouts in the Formula One world. And, Perez is a driver that has done a good job, but there seems to be some friction between him and Sebastian. They'll think that they've got a very good reserve driver in Daniel Ricciardo. And make no mistake, he's thinking that he'll have a chance at some point next year.
Just down at Red Bull, actually. Sergio Perez has already gone out. Max Verstappen just starting to put his balaclava on and think about getting out on track as one of the Mercedes goes out as well. I'm thinking it's Lewis Hamilton, just because that side of the garage is moving around a little bit more. On this Ricciardo moving across to Red Bull to be the third driver, I know, Sam, you were saying it's kind of the only option he had. He did have the option of Haas. It was there, I believe. If he'd have wanted to go there, he didn't. But it does go to show the changing fortunes in Formula One of a driver and their stock. This is a man who left Red Bull because he didn't want to be the number 2 driver to Max Verstappen.
And now he's the number 3.
He will be the number 3 driver to Max Verstappen in a team who are publicly saying, okay, it's not official yet, but in a team who are kind of implying that he won't even have a chance of that seat. I mean, there's a big it's a big one. And if, let's just say, they do want him to go into the team and his function would be as a simulator driver, but also as a promotional tool. And he wouldn't be necessarily first in line, or he wouldn't be getting a chance of that seat, then that's a bad career move, no? That doesn't keep his chances of being an F1 alive. That kind of consigns him to the subs bench at the very best. But he's not doing anything else in any other championship. So he's just here, lurking around.
It's difficult to know how it'll unfold, isn't it? I think that's the thing. Like, it's all a little bit, oh, but if it's this, then that's good. If it's this, then that's bad. So until, you know, we sort of see it unfold, interested to see what happens. Because you look at, like, you know, Antonio Giovinazzi as a bit of a random example, but he's Ferrari's reserve driver this year, and it feels like as a result he's been linked with a load of seats that you're a bit like, why I don't really understand why you would go for Giovinazzi. You know, he had a lot of Haas chat, and but only really kind of rumours earlier on this season. But that's because he's there, and you see him every weekend on the pit wall, and he's going around and chatting to people and whatever.
If you're there in the paddock, in that bubble, you'll be linked to stuff. I think that the moment, if Daniel were to leave and either go and do IndyCar or Formula E, Vettel radio.
Smoke coming out of the front left.
So he's kind of got the same as the McLarens, with some smoke coming from the front left. But yes, if he went to do IndyCar,
if he went to do another form of motorsport, you're automatically taking yourself out of that automatic question. You might still be mentioned, but you might not be mentioned as much.
38 minutes on the clock. Hamilton is quickest at the moment, 500ths quicker than Leclerc, who's in the pits. Fernando Alonso's improving on this lap. He's on the fastest first sector of anyone. George Russell across the line to improve, but remain in 6th place, 4 tenths down on Hamilton. On the soft tyres, Russell, which he's now done 5 laps on. And Alonso coming through the middle sector split. He's 3 tenths down now on Hamilton as he fires it into turn 9. And then gets back on the power down towards turns 12 and 13 onto the brakes through the right-hander there. Not much grip there. And then turns under the hotel and out through the final couple of corners, but really pushing it here, Alonso. 2 more corners to go for the Spaniard. Perez keeps out of his way through the final corner and out across the line. And Alonso remains in 3rd, didn't improve on that lap, in fact went a second slower, so despite doing a personal best in sector 1, lost a lot of time in the second 2 sectors.
Yeah, that mistake by the hotel, the tight right-hander really cost him a lot of time, Jack. Looking towards this weekend, can you remember 12 months ago, Jack? I mean, you were absolutely buzzing, weren't you, over the prospect of a Verstappen-Hamilton fight. And it just seems, you know, this race has got to happen, and I'm sure it'll be exciting and fun, but it just feels like there's not an awful lot of things to play for. Okay, we've got second in the drivers and we've got second in the teams, but the big one has been settled a long time ago. Let's just hope that the guys out there can give us an exciting race this weekend.
Well, that was the thing with Brazil, wasn't it, where there was nothing really to play for in Brazil, but that was maybe one of the best weekends of the season. Epic qualifying race, pretty decent sprint race, and then a really good Grand Prix. So that's all we can hope for.
I think the weather really played into that as well. And we had a fantastic story, obviously, with Kevin Magnussen and the Haas getting pole position. And that kind of hyped the weekend up quite a bit. Then you had a new Grand Prix winner in George Russell. Are we going to see those kind of events happening here in Abu Dhabi? No, because we know that it's going to be dry. And I presume that we will see the same people at the front as we do most of the time.
Haven't seen Max Verstappen on circuit yet, worth pointing out. Still in the pit lane. Everybody else has done, well, Tsunoda's got the fewest. He and Latifi have only done 3 laps each, but Verstappen is still in the pits, the only driver not to have been on track yet today. And Mick Schumacher, for example, has done 11 laps. Leclerc's done 8, but Verstappen no running at all, Jenny.
I think he proved yesterday, didn't he, when he missed free practice 1 and was pretty much the only driver in their press yesterday evening who didn't complain about being down time or having missed some of the sessions, so he wasn't quite up to speed yet. He is phenomenal. He can just jump in a car at any given point on any given day, put in a brilliant lap, and then go back and have a chat with, you know, Dr. Marco at the side of his car or whatever. He's so relaxed. It's unbelievable, and a very special quality that he has to be able to just turn it on and turn it off so quickly.
He has an incredible ability to find the absolute limit of himself in the racing car, literally on lap 1. We've seen it many times throughout this year where in FP1 everybody else goes out and does a lap time, and then Max Verstappen will go out and be 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker than everybody else, including his teammate, and it takes everybody a good half an hour, 40 minutes to catch up to his first lap time. So he does have that natural ability to find the limit much quicker, it seems, than everybody else.
Sergio Perez is on a quick lap here. He's coming through the middle sector now, coming down towards turn 9. DRS open through the middle sector split, and he is up by 4/10 on Hamilton. These are on an old set of medium tyres. He's done 4 laps on them already. He's got a bit of traffic coming up here. Everybody keeps out of his way just about. Now down into the final sequence of corners as he comes left under the hotel. But this is quite a good lapping coming here from Sergio Perez. 2 more corners to go. Flat out through 15 and then on the brakes and down through the gears at 16, across the line, and he goes quickest, only by 2/10 in the end compared to Hamilton, whereas he had been 4/10 up after the middle sector, but he does a 1 minute 25.861, Sergio Perez. And is that the quickest lap time of the weekend? No, he did a 25.1 with Verstappen in FP2 yesterday, so we're still 7/10 away from the quickest time we saw yesterday, but that was in the evening with different track conditions as the sun was setting. So the order is Perez, Hamilton, Leclerc, Alonso, Ocon the top 5, Sainz, Vettel, Russell, Norris, Stroll the top 10, Albon and Latifi in 11th and 12th, 13th for Ricciardo, 14th for Joe and 15th for Bottas, and then you've got Magnussen, Gasly, Schumacher and Tsunoda, the 19 drivers. Still no appearance yet from Max Verstappen. 32 minutes and 32 seconds left on the clock, and Gasly might have, he's got a front right puncture, I think, and maybe that's from hitting the wall somewhere. He's crawling back to the pits. He's made it back to the pit lane now, but it looks as though it's not even I mean, it is a puncture, but it's also kind of off the rim there, the wheel. Yeah,
very strange. There was actually a little bit of bodywork, a little bit of carbon fibre on the curb, as we hear his radio.
Something broke, I felt there was something strange with the front axle.
Okay, so something broke. He's just coming to where Jenny is now. What can you see, Jen?
Yeah, I'm just standing back a little bit, actually. Maybe it's so weird. He's struggling to brake because the car doesn't look very happy. Just trying to knock. There's loads of people on my right, and they're all trying to take pictures. I'll just get past them all. They're just having a look at it now to try and work out. Oh, that's weird. The whole of the like the hubcap area is totally smashed to smithereens. I can't see anything on the suspension that looks like it's dropped or fallen. So the team will obviously have to have a look at it. I mean, the whole car looks like it's very hot, but it normally does. Oh, that's so weird. It's like the whole of the inside rim is just sheared away. It looks very strange. I've never seen that before. I mean, it could just be collateral damage from it, but I'm trying to get a good look in.
Here's Gasly's radio.
I think it happened earlier. I felt like something strange from turn 3 was a bit strange with the front. So.
Yeah, we are missing some pieces.
So he was saying it was strange from turn 3, so I wonder if it's a blowout or something, because it just kind of, coming through turn 9, got on the curb on the exit, and it just kind of went bang and sort of took the fairing off, but I don't know if the fairing went bang and that popped the tyre or what it was, but it's an odd one. Can't quite work out what that is.
Yeah, very strange. I mean, the stresses and the loads going through all of the car in a Formula 1 car are enormous. You can't comprehend them. you know, these things do happen when the cars are under so much stress, so much load. But I'd be interested to see what they actually put this down to, whether that's it's called a cake tin around the brake material, whether it's a component that's failed off of that's then sheared the tyre. I mean, hopefully Jenny can try and find out from AlphaTauri later on in the session.
Yeah, I will try and find out. At the moment, they've got a whole host of mechanics trying to block our view, but it looks like the inner rim of the drum has just sheared away totally. Almost like a frisbee has been put on the inside of that, because it's just totally come away. The tyre, or the wheel is shattered to pieces, and it's very curious. Now you've got all sorts of cameramen trying to be on tippy toes, holding their cameras above their heads to try and get a decent view of it. But that is a very curious incident for the AlphaTauri team, and something they're going to have to look at, because you kind of feel like that shouldn't be able to happen.
Yeah, like I say, just coming through the left-hander of turn 9, got on the curbs on the exit, and the front right just sort of went bang, basically. But he said it had felt weird since turn 3, so a curious one. Red flag is out while they just cleared away the debris on the outside of the circuit at turn 10, which has now gone. 29 minutes and 3 seconds left on the clock, and everybody's through the pit. Verstappen had just left the pits. He'd just gone out on his outlap, and then it was a red flag. So not ideal for Verstappen.
So it looks like the vibration of the curb has done the final bit of damage. Look how the car is loaded up on the right-hand tyre, then boom, over the curb, and whatever component has failed in dramatic fashion on the exit curb. While we've got the red flag, Jack, I thought I'd bring up something that I was thinking about. Sebastian Vettel retiring.
Yeah.
Obviously. Now, I've felt over the last year that it was probably time for him to retire, in the fact that the results weren't going his way. He didn't look his former self, and being relentless and fast. And it looked like he'd lost the passion a little bit. But since he has announced his retirement, we've seen a massive increase in his form again. And I'm sat here in his final Grand Prix weekend thinking, I want to see him back, because I think he's doing a great job, and he has been such an amazing asset to Formula One for over a decade now, and it's such a shame that he's leaving, and we should remember him for being a great champion, not somebody that is midfield. But certainly his form recently has been superb.
Yeah, I agree, and here's Ocon's radio.
We need to be careful going that slowly in Sector 3. They threw yellow flags then, the car's coming past.
Yeah, the yellow flag was before.
The yellow flag was for you. You were going so slowly they thought you were stopping.
Ocon has just done some bizarre getting out of the way. He got absolutely stationary coming into the right-hander of turn 13, and then got all over the curbs on the inside at 14. Very, very weird. Here's Norris's radio.
Hamilton overtook the Haas as well under the red flag. Okay, understood.
So that's Norris dobbing Hamilton in for overtaking under the red flag. Well, I think it had just come out as Hamilton was going past them, and they were both going very slowly. So I think it would have been a bit ridiculous for Hamilton to have hammered on the anchors at that point. But session is back underway. Verstappen is out on circuit. Completely agree about Sebastian Vettel. It's been nice to see him this year. Suddenly, having some good races. Brazil, it was a shame that it all kind of slipped away, because he was doing a great job running up towards the front of the field. So, yeah, it's a shame, but he's had a long old career, and there's nothing more for him to get. He could have another season like this where he does quite well for a bit, but that's not really adding to his legacy much, I suppose. No,
unless you stuck him in a Red Bull again or a Mercedes, I don't think there's an opportunity for him to get back to the levels that he was previously, if he could get back there at all. But it is really, really nice to see him enjoying his racing and being quick again and competitive in a car that has not been the best, but he can still drag out some good results.
25 and a half minutes to go. Perez quickest at the moment still, remains in the pit lane. Hamilton's got out on a new set of soft tyres though. Verstappen's on a new set of soft tyres. Tell a lie, they are 3 laps old, but that'll just be the out lap probably, and he was just about to start a push lap when the red flag came out, so there won't be old tyres for Verstappen. Here he comes through sector 1, and he's down on Sergio Perez in the first sector, and Perez's time was done on the mediums, so this is his first run of the day though, of course. Hamilton is just coming out over the line now and down towards turn 1, so we'll keep an eye on his lap times also. Turn 5 incident involving Hamilton is noted for failing to slow under the red flags. Verstappen having a little bit of a slide as he tries to put the power down coming out of the chicane at turns 6, 7 and 8, and Hamilton has done a pretty quick first sector.
It was all a bit scrappy from Max going into the chicane there. It's like he braked a little bit too early and then was unsure on the turning point. He took 2 or 3 bites out of the steering wheel to try and get it turned into the left-hand first part of the chicane, which is very rare for Max. Normally so precise, knows exactly where to brake, exactly where to turn in. So that was a bit uncharacteristic, really. Although it is his first lap of the day, maybe I should forgive him.
He's slamming him.
How dare you not do a perfect lap?
Here he comes across the line, and it's an abysmal third for Max Verstappen, 2 tenths away from Sergio Perez. But in all seriousness, he was on the soft tyre. Perez's lap was done on 5-lap-old mediums. 23 minutes and 45 seconds on the clock. Hamilton has... No, he hasn't backed off. He's just 4 tenths slower than he needs to be in that middle sector. He's finding a bit more pace now in the final couple of corners. He's got 2 more to run at 15 and 16, but not a personal best in the middle sector. Out across the line. And Hamilton goes quickest, a 1 minute 25.824, but it's Alonso with the fastest first sector, Perez on the mediums with the fastest second sector. In fact, Alonso's fastest first sector is on the mediums as well, and Hamilton with the fastest sector 3. So plenty more time out there if people can find it. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, track evolution here pretty high, and the track's starting to cool down a little bit now. It's been a roasting hot day here. Just come down to Alpine, both cars in the garage at the moment. They've been working on the brakes on Alonso's car, and they've just put the drums back on. On the other side, it looks like they're doing a torsion bar change for Esteban Ocon. So I know you said he was the car, or he were driving a little bit strangely out there and having some issues, so I just wonder... They're obviously trying to help him out with something in that car at the minute.
Carlos Sainz is out on circuit on a medium tyre again. Is it the same? It is the same medium tyre. So not going for a soft tyre run just yet as he comes around the left-hander of turn 9. Still 22 minutes to go, and this session is... It's not completely unrepresentative because it is, you do go sort of day to night rather than just a full night race. So like Bahrain or Singapore, free practice 1 is completely different. But I think right now the track temperature is 43 degrees. I think at the start of FP2 yesterday it was 41 degrees, and then okay, it dropped as the session went on. But the start of the session is still fairly relevant. Hamilton back into the pits, Perez in second, Verstappen in third, and Verstappen did improve on that last lap on the soft tyres, but was still 2 tenths away from Hamilton. Is that correct what I'm saying? Yeah, I think it is. He's on a cool down lap now, so then he'll go again. I think that was still his first lap, wasn't it? Yeah, it was still his first lap for Verstappen. 2 tenths slower than Hamilton managed. Hamilton will be investigated after the session for failing to slow under the red flags. Verstappen comes across the line now and down towards turn 1. We'll see whether he can find a bit more pace this time around. It would be quite something if Hamilton were to take his, one and only win of the season at Abu Dhabi after what happened a year ago.
Well, considering the record that he's got, Jack, I would love to see him continue that record. It's never fun to see someone lose their streak of winning a race in each year. So I would dearly love for Lewis to do it, although I think it's going to be extremely difficult. The Red Bull looks very, very quick. We know that one of its strengths is straight line performance as well, compared to the Mercedes, and at a track where they've got one of, if not the longest straights in Formula One. How's that going to play out, especially in close combat? If I were to put my money on somebody right now, you know, it'd be hard to put money on anybody bar Max Verstappen for this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. He's, I think he's doing a double cool down here, Max Verstappen, because he's slow in Sector 1 as well. So we'll keep an eye on him, but he's not pushing at the moment. No one is on this current lap. Jenny?
Yeah, just come down to Mercedes to have a little look at what's going on. George Russell's just left on a new set of the soft red-walled tyres. Lewis Hamilton on the other side of the garage as well, just sort of waiting to go out, waiting for the right time. A lot of the drivers saying that cool-down laps yesterday were important, and there was a huge shift between both sessions. So free practice 1, the degradation felt very different to free practice 2. So there's clearly a lot of strategy, a lot of thinking and prep work going into running these sessions. Good to get it absolutely spot on. And when it comes to prep work, preparation, diligence, getting it right, you have to fear for one team, don't you, in particular this season, and hope that it's an outlier for them and that they can improve when they need to. But Ferrari don't traditionally go well here either, do they? They've never won here. It's been a split between Mercedes and Red Bull. Ever.
Wow.
Ever. Yeah. So a good stat for you for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tuck that one away in your pocket.
I didn't realise never. But I guess... No, it's been on the calendar a while, hasn't it? But anyway, 18 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock. Verstappen comes through the first sector and goes quickest of anybody. He's now coming down towards turn 5, the sort of hairpin-ish left-hander that leads out onto the back straight. The sound you can hear is Alex Albon coming through sector 1 on the softs. He's actually 700ths up on Hamilton after the first sector, so good first sector for Alex Albon, albeit one corner basically, sector 1. Now that they've jiggled around the circuit a little bit. Verstappen is up at the chicane meanwhile. Albon's flying on this lap. He's still going quickest of anyone as he gets onto the brakes. He's on a new set of soft tyres, so that will certainly have something to do with it. Verstappen's 4 tenths up on Hamilton now. Cool. Albon left that one a bit close. Was it a McLaren going slowly? I think it might have been Norris, but that was a tight one. Albon's 6 tenths up on Hamilton here. This is a huge lapping coming from Alex Albon. I don't know what he's up to. He's now coming into the final sector. Russell has done the fastest sector 1, so with 17.5 minutes to go, these lap times are starting to fire in. Verstappen through the final corner, and he does a 1 minute 25.618, which is 2 tenths quicker than Lewis Hamilton. Here comes Alex Albon through the final corner now in the Williams, and he goes 4th fastest, 4 tenths away from Max Verstappen. So that is an outlier of a lap, I would suggest, from Alex Albon. Russell looks like he might be going quicker than Verstappen at the moment. Alonso goes up to 5th quickest. Russell comes through the final corner and out across the line, and he goes faster than Verstappen by a couple of tenths. So Russell quickest, 2 tenths quicker than Verstappen. Hamilton in 3rd, who's just gone out on a new set of soft tyres. Perez in 4th. Albon is 5th. Alonso 6th. Leclerc, Ocon, Sainz and Vettel the top 10. Norris, Tsunoda, Stroll, Latifi, Ricciardo the top 15. Joe, Bottas, Magnussen, Gasly and Schumacher the 20 drivers. But I think we've got some more lap times incoming. But that Albon one was quite something.
We've got a lot of lap time left out there for a lot of drivers, Jack. That was a great lap from Alexander Albon, but he did leave a little bit of time on the table in the last corner. You saw him sort of fighting the rear of the car towards the apex. It wasn't very clean. I reckon there's another tenth there.
Alex Albon yesterday after the session of free practice 2 actually said he felt really good out there. He said everything was coming together, and I think he might have even been a little bit surprised by just how well he was doing yesterday and how the car felt. It was very responsive, so maybe this is one of the weekends where he can really shine and get some extra points, even though it won't make a huge difference, but that would be nice way to close out the season.
Yep, we'll have to wait and see what everyone else does. He was so close to that McLaren. It was ridiculous as they came.
Yeah, it was really unnecessary, wasn't it? How close he got.
I think it was
to the
Norris.
back of Lando Norris, just trying to get the the best eke out a tiny little bit of a toe. But I mean, any change in speed from Lando Norris, and that could have been very nasty.
That was wild. That was I can't get over how close that was on a lap with a car on a slowdown lap. Anyway, Hamilton's pushing on this new set of tyre. His first sector is about half a tenth slower than George Russell has managed. Russell is the quickest driver at the moment. Perez is starting a lap on the soft tyres, his first run on the softs. Hamilton through the middle sector, and compared to Russell, he is over a tenth of a second down. Ricciardo has just jumped up into 5th place in the McLaren. So that's a good lap. Perez has done the fastest first sector of anybody. Verstappen is back in the pits, so maybe about to go out on a new set of rubber. As Hamilton comes underneath the hotel, Bottas jumps up into 9th place. The Ferraris are both still in the pits and haven't run the soft tyre yet. Hamilton through the final corner at turn 16, and he goes fastest. So finds a lot of time on Russell in the final sector. A lot of time, good 3 tenths or so on Russell in the final sector. But Perez, as he comes through the middle sector split, is 4 tenths up on Hamilton. Perez flying here. Now, we have seen that the Mercedes has been the quickest car in the final sector so far this weekend. So although Perez has a big advantage now, it might start to slip away. There's some flashing lights around. I presume they're white flags for a slow-moving car. They are, so not yellows. So Perez can keep pushing into the final right-hander of turn 16, out across the line, and Perez goes fastest. And he is a quarter of a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton. So that's a good, strong lap from Perez, who's fighting for second in the World Championship, of course, but he goes to the top of the times. That's very encouraging for Red Bull to be 2 tenths clear of Hamilton, 4 tenths clear of Russell with Perez.
It's kind of expected, Jack, to be honest. That's where I thought that they would be. I thought they'd be a few tenths up the road from everybody here, Red Bull. I think that this is a track that can really suit them. I know that we've seen an upturn in form for Mercedes, but to be honest, I still think that this weekend is Red Bull's to have. What it does do, though, is it puts a lot of pressure on Ferrari to try and find something out of this weekend, because that is the battle that we need to look out for, really, is the Leclerc-Perez battle. Who's going to come out as vice-champion of the Formula One World Championship? And then, obviously, you've got the one between Mercedes and Ferrari for second in the constructors. So, you know, those are the 2 big things to look out for me.
So, at the moment, it is Perez quickest, Hamilton second, Russell third, Norris fourth, Verstappen is 5th, Ricciardo is 6th, 4 tenths off Lando Norris. Albon is now down to 7th with Alonso in 8th. Ocon is now in 8th because he's just gone quicker than Alonso. 10th is Charles Leclerc, still in the pits. Bottas 11th, Magnussen 12th, Sainz 13th is still in the pits too. 14th is Stroll, 15th is Schumacher, Vettel, Latifi, Tsunoda, Zhou and Gasly, the 20 drivers. 12 minutes and 20 seconds remaining, and I'm sure we'll see the Ferraris and Verstappen out on a new set of tyres fairly shortly.
One thing that I thought was quite interesting then is the difference between how George Russell and Lewis Hamilton constructed their laps. Obviously, George has pushed earlier on in the lap and run out of tyre a little bit towards the end of the lap, whereas I think Lewis has taken a little bit off his speed in Sector 1 to ensure the tyre is still there for Sector 3, and that's why you saw the difference, I think, in Sector 3. But that's going to change a little bit this evening with the drop in track temperature. Lewis will be able to push a bit harder in Sector 1. So will we see George improve Sector 3 or Lewis improve relatively to George in Sector 1?
Alex Albon comes across the line and doesn't improve. Remains in 8th position in the Williams, goes 4 tenths slower than he managed previously. Verstappen is out on circuit on a brand new set of soft tyres. Leclerc and Sainz still in the pits with 11 minutes and 14 seconds on the clock. The AlphaTauri team will having an examination of the front right of Pierre Gasly's car before they send him back out, or whether they do or not, we'll wait and see. But 11 minutes to go, and what can Verstappen do? We've seen Sergio Perez go quickest on a brand new set of the soft tyres. Verstappen on his second run of the session, will he find a little bit more time as he comes through the final sector now? No one's improving currently. Still the Ferraris remain in the pit lane, having only been out today on the medium tyres. Did 17 laps of running on the medium tyre. Verstappen is coming into the final sector now. And we will see what happens and what kind of pace the Red Bull driver has. The champion, the 2 times world champion, comes into the final corner at turn 16. Wide on the way in, gets on the power, and now starts his flying lap. Perez, his teammate, is quickest at the moment and has the fastest first and second sectors. Swings it into the left-hander at turn 1. Verstappen maybe would have done track limits if this were a qualifying session. And he's got quite a bit of traffic out there. He's a bit out of sequence with everybody else. Comes through sector 1 and he's up by almost 0.02 of a second. Turns into the left-hander of turn 5 and then definitely does track limits on the exit there and is pushing all the extremities of the circuit here, Verstappen, as he comes down to the chicane. Up to 200 miles an hour. Before getting onto the brakes into turn 6, 7, the right-hander, and then the easy left kink at turn 8 will get his middle sector split here. He doesn't look like he's that close to Perez, probably lost quite a bit of time at the turn 5 exit, comes through it, and he's almost 2 tenths down here on Sergio Perez is Max Verstappen. So he's going to need a big final sector, but again, it's just been a little bit scrappy as his first lap was. He was wide at turn 1, wide at turn 5 on the exits.
Wide at turn 1, wide at turn 5, traffic in sector 1, so I don't think he'll be too worried. But he will have some decent data in Sergio Perez to look at after this session and go, hang on, I can improve here and here. So it looks good for it. And again, wide out of the last corner. And okay, only a 1.5 tenths off, but we know what this guy can do. I mean, this is a guy that can not only be quicker than everybody, but really leave everybody in the past. You know, be half a second quicker than everybody on his day. So not the best session so far for Max Verstappen.
Perez is improving on this lap. He's just coming through the middle sector now. Does the fastest middle sector of anybody, Sergio Perez. So he's now coming into the final third of the lap. Here's Verstappen's radio.
We believe that would have been done for track limits at turns 5 and 16.
Yeah, I know.
Very good.
So GP just telling him that would have been track limits at 5 and 16, and he knows. Perez is about to improve, I think. He's coming into turn 15 now, the flat-out right-hander, penultimate corner on the circuit, then into turn 16, out across the line, and Perez does not improve in the end, so lost a bit of time out of the final corner. 7 minutes and 43 seconds to go. Perez quickest, Verstappen second, Hamilton third, Russell fourth, but Hamilton is pushing again on his soft tyres. They're not new. This is his second lap on the tyres. Jenny.
Yeah, it just comes down to AlphaTauri. They've just managed to send Pierre Gasly out. Obviously had that problem with his front right, which seemed to implode. So it's taken them a while to fix it. So he's just gone out. He's currently P20, but hopefully the car's in one piece and he can improve.
Any explanation as to what it was, Jenny?
Next question.
Fine.
Nothing that they've said yet. They haven't shared.
Okay.
7 minutes on the clock. Leclerc is now finally out in the Ferrari, and his first sector is not bad, about 400ths away from Sergio Perez's first sector time. The Mercedes are running again, but aren't improving.
Loads of oscillations from the engine off throttle.
We are checking it.
Loads of oscillations from the engine off throttle, says Leclerc. He's in the middle sector now. Russell comes across the line, does a personal best in sector 3, but ends up 7 tenths slower than Sergio Perez. Hamilton half a second slower, so the tyres not holding up for a competitive second run. Leclerc through sector 2 now. How far away is he from Sergio Perez? 4 tenths of a second after 2 sectors. So it might be in a bit of Norris trouble here. Norris is currently 5th fastest. Sainz is about to come through the middle sector. Remember, Perez was 4 tenths away. Oh, Leclerc really struggling down into turn 12. Sainz is half a second away. Ferrari might be under a bit of pressure from McLaren in this session. Here comes Leclerc, has a bit of a moment coming through turn 15, which usually is flat out across the line, and Leclerc doesn't beat Norris. 6th fastest for the Ferrari. Carlos Sainz now is coming into turn 15 where Leclerc had that moment a moment ago. More neat and tidy for the Spaniard. Comes out, cuts the timing beam, and he goes quicker than Leclerc, but still slower than Lando Norris, 6/10 away. So that's a big gap for Ferrari.
1,000th of a second between the two Ferrari drivers, which suggests that it's a difficult car to drive around here. I think Sector 3 especially, Ferrari tend to work their tyre a little bit harder, and by the time you get to Sector 3 in Abu Dhabi, the rear tyres are really screaming at you. The surface temperature is over and above what it needs to be, and you start to slide around a bit. I think that's why the Mercedes seems to be very strong in Sector 3, because they are historically, especially this year, a lot kinder on their tyre. In fact, some places they find it difficult to get their tyre in a window to do a push lap. So that's really helping Mercedes here, and it's hurting Ferrari, the fact that they work their tyre too hard. And there's not much they can do about it, Jack. They can go round and round in circles on setup, but it's just inherent in their philosophy and in their car.
Jenny.
This will be sweet news for McLaren. Just remember, they're trying to chase down Alpine this weekend. They need a big points haul if they're going to be able to do that. They're currently 19 points behind their rivals in that battle for fourth place. So if Ferrari is just off the pace enough that they can get one or two of their cars, would be miraculous, but definitely one of their cars ahead of them and pick up bigger points, my word, that could be really interesting for them.
Yeah, but it's just... Even if Norris finishes 5th, which would be a really good result, you're getting 10 points. It's not enough, is it? I think it's going to be really tight. If Ricciardo would then also need to pick up... They'd need to finish... So surely they'd need to finish... In order to overturn a 19-point swing, you'd need to be... Well, you'd need to be 4th and 5th.
Yeah,
with Alpine scoring no
both
points.
Cars in the top 6 in order to have a chance, and Alpine to have a terrible day. And can we really see that on the current form? I mean, I'd love to see it. I think that I'd love to see McLaren take the fight to Alpine, but given the form of Mercedes especially, I think it's going to be very, very difficult.
I agree. I think it's going to be very difficult. Team Radio.
It's not looking good. Fronts are gone after 4 corners.
Copy.
So Leclerc saying it's not looking good. The fronts are gone after 4 corners. Do carry on, Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at the track record of Alpine, okay, they can get a result on the right day. For example, 5th place last time out for Alonso, but their reliability record is relatively poor, with 3 DNS for Alonso since Italy. So it's not a done deal. It looked almost impossible coming into this weekend, but it's certainly a glimmer of hope if they can be faster than Ferrari.
Yeah, it is a glimmer of hope, Jenny, and I completely understand where you're coming from with regards to Alpine's track record with reliability issues, especially on Fernando Alonso's side this year. I think he's really been hampered compared to Ocon. But it's just down to the fact that you've got 6 cars out there that are just quicker than McLaren for all the time. So for them to get the big points they need, even if Alpine have a bad day and both cars retire, they're going to need a Red Bull to have a bad day, at least one Mercedes to have a bad day, and a Ferrari or 2 to have a bad day as well, in order to pick up the points they need. I think that's the key point.
And if they have bad days and retire or whatever, then Alpine shuffle up the order and start scoring points. So I think it's a real stretch, I think, for McLaren to get that 4th place. Max Verstappen's on another push lap here, coming into the final corner. He's not going to improve, does a 1:25.3, which is 0.2 slower than his previous best. So Perez is going to end the session fastest, I think, on a 1:24.982, 10.5 ahead of Verstappen, still 1 minute and 10 seconds on the clock. Lance Stroll is on a push lap. Alex Albon looks like he's just winding up for another go on his tyres that have 6 laps on them, so I don't think this is going to be a huge improvement. But bad news for Ferrari that they're saying that Leclerc's saying the tyres are gone after 4 corners. That's the first sector, and there's only 1 corner in those 4 corners, really, isn't there?
Well, the tyre does take a hammering through turn 2 and turn 3. They're very high loading, high speed corners, and this track is it is difficult on the tyre, as I said, especially when you get to Sector 3, the surface temperature is screaming at you. So it does help a car like Mercedes that is just kinder on its tyre than the Ferrari.
20 seconds on the clock. Lance Stroll still improving. Gasly's improving as well in the middle sector. Sainz did a personal best in Sector 1, but just slipping away a little in the middle sector at the moment. Albon through the middle sector split. He's 9/10 down on Perez, so I don't think this is going to be an improvement for Alex Albon. Stroll takes the checkered flag and jumps up into 16th position. And I think that's going to be it for those improvements. Sainz is still on a reasonable middle sector, but not exactly setting the world alight. Personal best he looks set for. And so is Leclerc, actually. So both Ferraris coming into the final sector with a chance of improving, which is encouraging based on the fact that these are old tyres that they're on. They've already done a quick lap on them, and that they're finding time to improve suggests that maybe they've got some hope of keeping some sort of life in those tyres. But they are in the third sector now, so we'll see whether the time starts to slip away. Leclerc jumps up into 6th place, so Leclerc does manage to improve at the end. Alex Albon running wide and losing a bit of the car there, I think, coming out of the left-hander of turn 5. But Leclerc does manage to get ahead of Sainz at the end. Haven't seen Sainz's lap time just yet, but that's it really for practice this season. So just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys who've joined us throughout the season, to be honest, and it's been a real, as ever, a lot of fun in the practice sessions, and they wouldn't be half as fun without you guys listening and getting in touch, so really appreciate that. It is Sergio Perez who ends the session quickest, Max Verstappen second, Hamilton third, Russell fourth, fifth for Lando Norris, Leclerc then sixth. Sainz did improve but remained in 7th place, 8th for Daniel Ricciardo, 9th for Sebastian Vettel, 10th for Alex Albon in the Williams. So that's encouraging. Less encouraging for Ocon and Alonso in 11th and 12th. Yuki Tsunoda, 13th quickest. 14th for Valtteri Bottas. 15th for Pierre Gasly. Stroll, Magnussen, Schumacher, Zhou and Latifi, the 20 drivers.
Job done. That is practice over for the year. Next up will be qualifying as we see which of the 20 drivers will be on pole position. And Sam Bird, cat amongst the pigeons, Perez fastest.
Do you know what? Sergio was really strong around Abu Dhabi. I've raced him here before in GP2, and he absolutely dominated that race. So I've always thought that he's been good round here. He is kind on his tyres. We know that through his Formula 1 career. He could be a threat for pole position this evening, absolutely.
He has had pole positions so far this season. He's done all right with them. I'm just trying to flick in my book, and I've gone to I keep all the results in my book, and I've just gone to last year's results, which isn't going to help me much to tell you where he got his pole positions. I should be able to remember off the top of my head. It was Saudi Arabia. He's only had one pole.
Yep.
There we go. So, the opportunity's there. Max Verstappen, coming into this race weekend, did say, well, I'll help him if I need to. Doesn't seem like maybe Perez will need Verstappen's help at this rate.
Or Verstappen's just letting him win already from the start.
I didn't know. Verstappen is not that kind of character. Verstappen wants to win every race he ever enters, regardless of the status of the championship. He will go into this race weekend wanting to win another race, because it's another one ticked off for him. Sergio, I think, just got to go out there and think, I've just got to do this on my own skill set and on my own merit. And I don't think he can rely on Max Verstappen and the help of Max Verstappen, because it might not be there.
But also, it seems pretty nailed on after today.
Yes.
It's looking very strong for Perez in that second place in the championship fight. He's just absolutely sent it into turn 1.
Unless he does that at turn 1, then and locks up.
Did a practice start and then just went straight on. But the way Ferrari are performing and the way Red Bull are performing, he's got to be the favourite, I think, for second in the championship.
Hamilton and Russell in 3rd and 4th place. So Mercedes looking decent, and certainly, Sam, they're looking ahead of Ferrari.
They are, and you wouldn't have said that at the start of the season, would you?
No,
I
don't think so.
Mercedes, they did look lost at the beginning of the year. For a long period, they looked like they didn't know what to do with this car. I think that clearly over the last couple of months, they've started to really understand the package underneath them, whereas
They're almost there, aren't they?
Ferrari have gone the other way.
OK, I'm going to cut you off because we're going to end up running out of show. So apologies, Sam. We'll come back to you later and talk a bit more about it. But make sure you come back for qualifying. It takes place at 2 o'clock this afternoon, 6 o'clock local time. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Sergio Perez is fastest.